Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Do 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 do. That's the theme.
It's the theme to Evil Dead.
Yeah. Hey everybody.
Hello everyone.
Shaking off the cobwebs. Hi. My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise. Rise. Rise and
Just
be
get up.
recognized.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
no big deal.
all your achievements this past school year.
What's up, sis?
I had the most beautiful dream.
It was the perfect day. And all I could think about was how much I wanted to cut you all open and then climb inside your bodies. So that we could stay one happy family.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Hello.
Hi, hello.
Man, Evil Dead, Tom. I'm always excited for new Evil Dead.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen often. Unlike the franchise to which the theme song that we hummed earlier actually belongs.
Yes.
There's like 10 years in between each Evil Dead installment, it feels like.
There was an interview with, I think, Bruce Campbell or Rob Tappert, or one of them, who said they want to do it every few years now. And that kind of worries me. Because, I don't know if they need to do it. I mean, let's get one thing straight. There's nothing you can do to the Evil Dead franchise that'll ruin it.
No.
If
they wanted, if by a
into
few
it.
years they mean like 3-4 years, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I think that's all right.
Yeah. Like a new.
How did you like Evil Dead
a new
Rise?
Counting Crows album.
Yeah.
How did I like Evil Dead Rise? I really liked it, Dave.
Me too.
I really liked it. I thought it was fucking wild. It is wild.
Yes.
I have some thoughts. I'm not sure if I liked it as much as the original remake. I have some thoughts about taking the setting out of the woods and putting it in an apartment building, but I'm sure we're going to discuss all that.
interesting. Yeah, I have what I would call more concerns, because I enjoyed this through and through, from beginning to end. Obviously they understand. This is Lee Cronin, who did The Hole in the Ground, which I haven't seen.
All right.
And I've been trying to get around to, because I really like the premise. I like holes in the ground.
I like holes
who doesn't?
where you toss stuff in there and it grants you a wish, but something freaky happens. I'm into that.
Yeah.
I'm into that particular genre of Are You Afraid of the Dark story.
Yeah, for sure. But like you, I do have some notes. I have some. Again, I liked what I saw here. It's not there's. I have some what maybe they could have done, and also general concerns about what we just said about the fact that they're going to make some every few years. I think in theory that's okay, but there are some things from this movie that concern me in talking about that. So we'll get into it. This is Evil Dead in the City. Mm-hmm. Evil Dead takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
Which I think this is
Los Angeles.
It's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
It's actually Bulgaria or something, but it's supposed to be Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it's a single mother and her kids, and her sister comes into town, and there's an earthquake.
Just in the freak-deakiest apartment building. It's like the Tower of Terror.
Yes.
It's the most haunted building in Los Angeles. There's the ghost of 100 starlets and rock and roll stars who hit age 25.
They have a line which I feel like was to almost explain that, where they're like, it's getting torn down in a month, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, because I'd tear this place down.
Yeah,
it's
it looks like
an apartment building that doesn't exist
Right.
in Los Angeles, I would say. But
it looks sort of like the hotel. Oh shit! It was the one right near where we used to live.
oh, the Culver Hotel.
Yeah. It kind of looks like that. It's like weirdly shaped.
Yeah. It definitely has that vibe. It's one of those things where it's like, I commend movies that avoid this, but it's really hard to make horror movies these days because, like, no one wants to live in a haunted McMansion. You know, like, they're not fun. But it's very funny when someone lives in, like, this antique house in Los Angeles, and I'm like, that doesn't exist. Why? Well, you know, if it did exist, it would cost a lot to live there. But again, no one wants a fucking, like, condo that's haunted, you know?
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
just
well,
less.
Paranormal Activity got a lot of mileage out of a haunted McMansion.
Oh, for sure.
But
I mean, this is just to say that architecture these days sucks. And so it's like whenever you want to do something interesting as a set designer, I feel like you got to just like fib it a little and be like, yeah, they live in this old creepy hotel for
Right.
some reason.
yeah, it's kind of like Dana Barrett's apartment building.
Yeah.
It's less Art Deco.
Yeah.
It's more like just general spookiness, but it definitely
Yeah.
it seemed like a place where the Ghostbusters would be called.
Yeah. The elevator's 100 years old.
Oh yeah, there's no way that elevator was inspected recently. It was only a
No,
matter of
no
time
way.
before that thing broke.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That thing
Dead-
is
dead-
bound to be filled with blood.
Deadites or not.
Yeah. So yeah, it's you know, family, sister comes to visit, the father left. There's sort of the sister isn't around that much. She finds out she's super preggo, and so she's sort of starting in this place where she's not sure if she wants to be a mom. She's visiting the family. Well, it actually starts a day later, which was a weird framing device, I thought. They do this cabin thing where these people are at the cabin, and they do a fun thing with a drone to like mimic the Evil Dead,
flying,
you know. Yeah. And then like the
That was
lady
weird.
goes bonkers. You see it in the trailer. She comes out, but that is the movie is bookended with that, and it really didn't matter.
It was, well, they wanted to have a sort of prologue that introduced a set of characters that makes you think like this is the main story, and then just immediately murks them all.
Yeah.
But it creates this weird problem with the movie's, well, it's not a problem with the movie's timeline. It just creates a weird timeline where like it starts with this cabin prologue, and then it says one day earlier, and then we have the main story of the movie, and then
And it has nothing to do with that person.
not
and then
really.
at the
It's
very end.
yeah, that the character, one of the characters we see in the prologue comes in at the very end and gets infected by the evil. So it's showing us that the evil's continuing, but it was a little weird. It was a little weird. I get why they did it.
Yeah,
They wanted to have that sort of attention grabbing prologue where it's just like balls out crazy straight out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't hate it.
No,
I
not at all.
It made me kind of scratch my head a little.
I'm always
We
well.
should-
I think we've talked about it before, but anytime a movie begins with something like a huge offer and then fades to black and says like 1 day earlier or 1 week earlier, like you and I have talked about this before, where it's like, man, that always feels real sweaty. So you better justify it.
Right, and they didn't. They
And they
didn't,
don't
but also
really.
it didn't.
But it also
They
doesn't
didn't-
matter.
Yeah, it also didn't matter. That's the weird way of putting it. Is that it's kind of this thing where horror movies. Here's the thing: horror movies always start with a murder. Start with something. If they don't, then the audience might get bored. I don't think all movies need to do it. There's obviously slow burns, but this is that same idea, right? Like Friday the 13th starts with the campers getting killed in the 50s. And then it goes to a completely different story. And so that's what this did. It just did something more interesting with the timeline. And then horror movies always have to end with someone going, oh, the villain's back, eyes open. And this does that too. But again, since it plays with the timeline in this weird way, it's just doing a very unique version of that, which I didn't hate. It
No.
was just a little odd.
It felt a little weird. It's not. Yeah, it just felt a little weird. I guess I don't have any
I
further
don't-
thoughts on that.
There's no other way to describe it, and I don't know if it's good weird or bad weird. It just felt off pacing wise, but that's fine.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was weird to. Yeah,
Yeah, it was weird. Like then when the movie ended, and then they have this epilogue with this her in the park. It's like what's going to happen because you saw the beginning, and it's like I don't know who this woman is.
In the prologue, we see that this character is like already been possessed. She's sick and staying inside the cabin, and they don't know what's wrong with her. Right? She's like mysteriously ill and can't move, and is just being creepy alone in the cabin. But when we meet her in the prologue, she's coming down out to her car. She's talking to her cousin on the phone. She's like, "Hey, I'm about to come pick you up. We're going to go down to this cabin with my boyfriend and some of his friends. You're going to meet them. It's going to be great." And then she sees all the violence from the night before and gets possessed. And that's where the movie ends. But that means that she still has to, as a deadite, get in the car, go pick her cousin up, and drive them to the cabin.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because they're trying to show like what happens. Like the prologue is to show what's going to happen to somebody else, right?
Right. It's just showing
like,
us how the
when
evil
she
will
gets
continue to spread. Yeah.
Right, but when she gets attacked in the elevator later, she doesn't have like a period where she's okay to drive.
No.
Like that's what's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. She's getting her ass haunted off and then gets strangled by cables.
Right, and then she walks in and she's all fucked up from the start.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not like if you remember the original Evil Dead, Shelley actually does have like an hour or so where she's just freaked out and she has the evil in her already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'd think they'd do that because that's what they're implying there. So yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
It's not a big deal. It's just something that just occurred to me and I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Like
okay.
what must that drive have been like?
Yeah, that's got to be really uncomfortable,
with the deadite
right?
driving.
Right, trying really hard to act like
right.
her sister or something.
It's like Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black, just trying to be cool.
Right. Trying to keep, I just want to go to this cabin. I love cabins.
Yeah, I'm really into cabins, especially like angular ones like this one. That was a fucked up looking cabin. Super
pointy.
pointy.
The A-frames.
It's like
people love the A-frames.
Like a Pope hat.
Yeah. Horrors love A's and triangles. They're scary to us.
Weird geometry.
We love them.
Weird geometry has like a primal effect on us.
Right. Growing up, I lived near an A-frame, and yeah, they were weirdos.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah, they always are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to bring up my issues. I'm going to bring up my concerns. So my concerns about this movie as it relates to the larger series, because again, I liked this. I had fun doing it. Watching it rather. I liked that it wasn't related to that prequel or to that first one, the first remake.
Not directly.
I like that it's like, that it's like kind of episodic, that they're not, they didn't feel the need, because that's different. If obviously Evil Dead continues the Ash story. What concerns me is it felt like there was a need to have certain things in this that is going to start getting kind of old. Chainsaws, for example, shotguns, the badass main character at the end, having to say badass things.
Well, and
the need for an Ash.
Yeah, and specifically she says, "Come get some."
And my question is is it not an Evil Dead if they don't pick up a chainsaw? Because I think at a certain point that's going to get really tiring if they feel like they have to do that stuff.
Well, here okay, I'm sorry, finish your thought.
No, and the fact that they're saying we're going to make one every few years, I'm like, that's a blast, but I can it feels like there are some walls that they have put up, some limitations that I don't think they need to have there. And by having those, they make it a little less unpredictable.
That's true. That's definitely true. And I think that's just a problem with doing too many sequels, because I'm going to push back against
For sure.
About that. Because here's what I think in my mind, the two essential elements of an Evil Dead movie, right? With or without Bruce Campbell.
Yep.
Is a thing we've talked about on the previous Hypecast and a couple of times before, I'm sure. Evil Dead's about twisting the knife. It's about finding clever ways to twist the knife.
Yes.
fiendishly clever ways for characters to inflict punishment on themselves or get beat up. It goes back to Sam Raimi wanting to beat the shit out of Bruce Campbell. So part of it
and
is
emotionally twisting.
Right, emotionally twisting the knife too. Yeah, it's not just physical, but it's like, you know, the Deadites switching back and forth between being your loved one and being a monster, getting doused in blood and bugs and bile and gross stuff, and then also getting like your skin shaved off with a cheese grater. That's one big element, the twisting of the knife. The other big element is that the main character or characters eventually get so beaten down that they reject their victim status. Like that's in every single Evil Dead.
That's true.
So, and that's who Ash is. Ash is a character who got pushed so far that he's like, fuck it, I'm not being terrorized anymore. I'm going to terrorize the monsters.
Right. And that leaves a question there, which is that exclusive to Ash?
No, it's not.
It isn't. But that's why I'm like, kind of like for example, Alien. You could say there's some element of that in Alien, right? Which is someone stepping up to become a badass. They do that with Sigourney Weaver. But then the question is, how do you make an alien without Sigourney Weaver? Do you just always have a character have that same arc? Because if you do, then again, you lose a lot of predictability. And of course, the answer in my head is like, I don't know, maybe just don't make it anymore.
I don't think
of course.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think it's the same thing as like Final Girl. Obviously, Sigourney Weaver, as the series progressed, you know, in Alien, it's much more Final Girl because it's such a desperate thing that she finally does to destroy the alien. But like as the series goes on, she does turn into Sarah Connor and like this hardened badass who takes charge and just blows aliens away and it, you know, whatever.
Right.
But it's not like the same thing as other slashers or horror movies where there's an entity or a force that has to be stood up to and defeated at the end. Because it's not just about standing up to them, it's about humiliating it and like really making the monster experience what it's been putting them through for the entire movie. The Evil Dead's much more about the humiliation of the monster.
Yeah, I also don't disagree with you, by the way. What concerns me is that what we're describing is a character arc. Mm-hmm. And if that is one of the things you have to have, then that doesn't leave many rooms for sequels, right? Like, that's the thing, is that you just keep making the same movie over and over again.
That's true.
With sort of a different environment around it.
I think that's the less essential element of Evil Dead. Because the original it is like Ash doesn't become Ash the way he is until Evil Dead 2. And it's sort of the way in the original Evil Dead remake as well. Although she, I mean, it does end in like a fucking Slayer raining blood sequence where she's just stabbing the monster in the face with a chainsaw. So that is pretty hardcore. But like, I think, I do think in order to keep the series fresh, you could tone down that element. I don't think you could lose it completely because I feel like it's still part of Evil Dead's like attitude.
Yeah, here's the thing is, I think, all right, I don't think that's actually the problem I'm having with it. Now, the more I think about it, because I guess most horror movies kind of have to do that. If it's a slasher movie, someone has to step up and fucking take charge, right? Mm-hmm. I think to me, it's specific to chainsaws, shotguns, these iconic things, these lines that they feel beholden to.
It's the member berries. I see that.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's like the idea of like Indiana Jones always needs his whip, right? Mm-hmm. And then if they made a new Indiana Jones that was like a spin-off, wouldn't it feel weird if someone else picked up a whip?
Right, if he like, also had a whip, yeah.
Yeah, and it's that where it's like, I don't know, give them something new. Give them another iconic thing to use against the Deadites. Because just picking up another shotgun and another chainsaw, it just feels like uncreative, kind of, where it's like, don't do the same thing. Give us the same feeling. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the way Dead Alive used a lawnmower, you know? Like find a new weapon to wield that's fun if you're going to do something like that, you know?
I will say... I totally understand what you're saying. I also agree with it. Like, I sort of cringed a little bit when she said, come get some.
Right.
And but I did like that they immediately took the shotgun away from her. Like, she never really uses it. Like, she kind of blows off an arm and a leg of the main Deadite, but that's it.
Yeah.
And they swap in a wood chipper, which is delightful.
The wood chipper was fun. Yeah.
Wood chipper is a great addition.
No, again, this movie was
Evil
fun.
Dead.
The movie was fun. That's why I'm calling these concerns, because I don't think these are criticisms with the movie I watched.
Right.
I enjoyed the movie I watched. It's just the realization that if they're going to keep doing this, they're going to have to switch it up.
Yeah.
They're just going to have to.
Yeah.
I will say I do have one critique of this movie. And again, it's not really a critique. It's more of like, I kind of wish they used more city. And I don't think they had the budget.
No.
Because like,
They
there was
definitely
really no
didn't, I don't
difference between this and a cabin. You know what I mean? It's not much different.
That was-
Using an apartment building that they can't leave, it doesn't really change the dynamic from a cabin.
It kind of does to me. And I'll explain why. I did think it felt a little weird, or I don't know. I don't want to say it lost something, but it did feel a little strange that it wasn't in the woods. But that's just, I think that's just comes with the territory of doing such a dramatic shift in setting than what you're used to in the franchise. Obviously, I think that doing all the things like immediately taking out the elevator, the stairs, they don't have phone service because of the earthquake. So essentially making that floor of their apartment building, and really their apartment, essentially like the cabin, was intentional and worked out well, I think. The thought that I was getting to was that I didn't necessarily think it was like a detriment that it's like, well, this is just like a cabin, because it reminded me sort of like Halloween, where they show you all of the places that Michael is going to be at the end of the movie, in the beginning of the movie, during the daytime, and then at the end you see all those places in the dark with Michael lurking in there, and it suddenly becomes scary. So I think throwing a Deadite into a situation that feels so normal to most people, like, oh, this is recognizably an apartment, here's the living room, here's the bedroom with DJ Dipshit's ones and twos, his mix table.
He was great. I loved him.
Yeah, he was great. It looked like an apartment that plenty of us have lived in, and whereas a cabin has, like, I think we all understand like the idea of a cabin, but it's
more foreign.
It's already creating distance. So I think throwing it in an apartment like this kind of narrows that distance for a lot of viewers.
For sure. Here's what I mean. You mentioned the wood chipper.
Mm-hmm.
Where would a wood chipper normally show up?
In the forest. Yeah.
So, like, use something else. Use something in a city. Use a garbage truck. Do something that's what I mean, that it's like, it didn't actually feel like the city setting added anything, ultimately, because you could take this entire movie in the events that happen, more or less, and translate it some way to a cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it just felt like, I don't know, again, Chainsaw. Why is there they had to do this like landscaping truck to like bring all these things to them, and it's like, it would have been so cool if they found like some city themed weapon to use, some city themed ending.
There's
using the actual city.
Plenty of construction equipment you can find in a city, like on a road crew that could have, like in High Tension, she picks up that gnarly ass saw that's, it's stuff like that, and
that's why I was just like, oh, you could have used more city. And I know this is probably budget, and this is totally beyond their control, but I would have liked it. Like, I would have liked what they did with the new Scream with Evil Dead. I think that would have been fun. Seeing like in public, crowded areas. Because the beauty of the Deadites, as far as I'm concerned, is that they don't actually need isolation, do they?
No.
Like, they can just fucking go to town.
I mean, they fight a whole skeleton battle in Army of Darkness.
Right.
Like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
So we don't really know what the Deadites want. They just want to fuck with you.
Chaos.
Which is what makes them fun.
They're just evil.
So you'd think they wouldn't want to actually cut people off from society. You'd think that they'd want to actually go out into civilization. So, like, I just think there's a version of this where you could have a lot more fun.
For sure.
With the city setting.
I'd love to see that too. Like a the bits we see in Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 of the ghosts just wreaking havoc across, like more stuff like that of just like around the city. I understand that it would be very expensive. It's the same reason why we don't actually see Jason in Manhattan when Jason takes Manhattan.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Yeah, no, I
You
think
can still do like nightclubs.
Yeah.
If there was a Deadite in a nightclub, a concert, like there are city settings that they could have gone to.
Yeah.
A police station. They go to a police station and all hell breaks
You're
loose.
just fucking.
You know?
You're going through the Terminator right now.
Hell yeah, I am.
What if they went to, I don't know, Griffith Park Observatory?
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying there. I do. They have a line in here that sort of kind of explains the plot reasons for why the Deadites like to isolate people, and it's consistent with what we've seen in the rest of the movies. It's
Right.
just more fun for them. Like they like wreaking havoc and chaos, and
Yeah, they're like torturing people.
yeah, and it's just easier to do when it's a bunch of people that you can systematically wear down over several hours trapped in one spot.
Absolutely.
Like I get that, but every once in a
Yeah.
while you gotta let them cut loose, baby.
Of course. So I guess this goes back to concerns is that if every Evil Dead they make every few years is let's isolate the characters, find a reason to give them a shotgun and do the same exact arc, then it's just going to start getting old. But I want to talk about why I liked this movie because I really liked this movie.
Yeah.
Because you again, you mentioned twisting the knife and this movie does it terrifically. This is about kids who watch their mother turn into a Deadite. And let me tell you, she doesn't come back from that.
Nope.
And then more of the teenagers die than you think. I.e., all of them.
Specifically, all of the teenagers die.
Yeah. And they just torture this little girl as she watches her family just turn into fucking Deadites and get murdered, and then their corpses come back alive essentially, and they keep torturing them. And it comes down to this woman and this little kid just trying to fucking survive. And so the emotional element there is very clear of like, just let's torture this little girl psychologically. I appreciate that. Like I bet I said on a Hypecast like, oh, they should turn the little girl into a Deadite, and they could have, but you know what's worse? Just traumatizing her.
Right, turning everyone
for
around
30 minutes or 90 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Yeah.
I was honestly scared when I first saw the family. I was like, oh no, there better be enough deaths, because they introduced the neighbors, and I was like, are they all the fodder? But no, they immediately killed like the teenage daughter. I thought was going to be the main character.
Nope.
Or one of the main characters.
Nope.
Absolutely not.
She gets super possessed.
She eats glass.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I had the same thought because going into it, knowing it was I liked the idea of making it a family.
It's a really like
it's an interesting idea. It lets you do a lot of stuff, like we were saying, playing around with the emotional stakes and tension and horror, and like the emotional and psychological stuff. But yeah, I had the same worry. I was like, man, they typically try to save the family in a case like this, and there's just not that many characters. And in Evil Dead, we're like, kind of thing about Evil Dead is, in addition to it being playful, and Ash being like this cool but goofy buffoon who just murders his way through Deadites and is never harmed. It's a pretty cruel series.
Right. The other thing about Evil Dead is the body count. 6 people get together, you guarantee only one of them's coming out, right?
Yeah.
That's just how Evil Dead works. So when they started with this family, I was like, you better have the guts to do what it needs to be done here.
And
they did.
Not only do they do that, Dave. The wildest part of the film is the two dead teens start ripping apart Deadite Mom, and we're not entirely sure what's happening at first, because Deadite Mom has gotten her arm and her leg blasted off with a shotgun, so she can't really move anymore. And they just start digging into her abdomen and stuff, and it looks all gross. And it's really weird and uncomfortable. And then we see what they're doing is they're fusing together to form this giant boogans, just this giant writhing mass of arms and legs that shambles through the vent and chases them out into a parking garage. And it looks like a monster from like a Resident Evil game, or like...
Looks like something from The Thing.
Yeah, yes, there it is. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I was genuinely, like, when I saw that, I was shocked that Evil Dead hadn't done that yet. That was the thing. I was like, oh, right. Why hadn't they done that in like the original films?
They don't
or the TV show.
Yeah, they don't usually have other Booganses outside of the Deadites. So like Henrietta's the most notable exception, I can think of. But it's really,
Yep.
it's they don't have like a bunch of different types of monsters. So it was really like, we're not expecting this.
Well, that's-
and then it happens.
That was the thing is I didn't expect, like, it surprised me that like Army of Darkness hadn't done something like this. But the thing is that is keeping to tradition better than the first remake, because the first remake just kept it as Deadites. And then like you're saying, Henrietta turns into a fucking monster. There are monsters in this series.
Yeah.
And so to see that was like, right. Yeah, give me the fucking monsters, because they exist in Evil Dead. So that was really nice to see. And it was really nice to see, I was just talking about how they played it safe with like the chainsaw and stuff. It was nice to see them add to the lore in terms of a new fucking monster. And so it's like, that is very nice to see that and to think like, oh yeah, they can add that to like the video game now. That is a new piece. And so I guess I wish there was a little more of that throughout, of them like keeping with the tradition where it's like, yeah, there's always there will be monsters, but doing their own thing. It was really nice. It was also nice to see an eyeball fly into someone's mouth.
Yep.
I mean, that was a direct,
Chokes him to death,
not
too.
Evil Dead
He
2.
chokes to death on the eyeball.
Yep.
It was really gnarly too. It reminded me like From Beyond when Jeffrey Combs sucks that lady's brain out through her eye socket.
Yeah.
It was just grabbing this dude and biting his ocular cavity out. It was fucking gnarly. I want to.
They did a good.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, I was just gonna say they did good with the sense of humor. They didn't make it Three Stooges because it's not Sam Raimi directing, which I want to talk about that too. But like they did some silly stuff, and I didn't think they were gonna do any. So
there was a little. The movie still maintained Evil Dead's kind of playful tone, but it's like a chaotically playful. So like for instance, the reveal of the horrible monster at the end is, we're seeing the zombie teens digging into zombie mom, and they kind of like, there's a lot of goo noises, and it cuts to a shot of the Necronomicon as its pages are leafing, and then it stops on a drawing of this horrible monster. So we see the drawing of it first, and my theater reacted to that. So it's like, it does things like that where it's kind of winking at you a little bit, but not like in a hey, isn't this dumb kind of way. It's like it's playing with the language of horror films that it knows that most of the audience is going to understand and be like, hey, you're going to see this fucked up thing. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And
I also think,
just real quick related to that, you had said that you wish they did more monsters. I'm glad they only did the one and that they revealed it this way because you're not expecting it. So
no, what I'm saying, I'm not saying I wish this movie did more monsters. I'm saying that first remake, I realized after the fact, like, they didn't do monsters, and that's an Evil Dead thing, And this monster itself, I think, is just so perfectly ingenious, the idea of the Deadites fusing together, that I'm honestly surprised Sam Raimi hadn't done it. That was my thought of that, where I was like, of course.
Yeah.
What a great idea for a Deadite monster, It was so obvious after the fact that I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's so perfectly done. You do not see it coming, and the way they show it to you by just showing you a drawing of it about several minutes before you actually see it, so it kind of actually adds to the tension that you see a drawing of what it's gonna be before you see it.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so fun.
I also want to say the fun in this, the humor, I really think they did a good balance, because they're not trying to be Evil Dead 2, and I honestly think you don't have to do that to be Evil Dead. Obviously, the first Evil Dead movie isn't silly.
Isn't funny.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a requirement for an Evil Dead movie to be tongue-in-cheek. And so I think they did a good job balancing that, where this was kind of the right amount of like, you're just wincing, to sometimes you're laughing, to sometimes there was a couple shots where I went, ooh, like when the sister kind of floats into the room with the sheet on her head.
Yeah.
That was just straight up horror.
That was gnarly. That was such a good idea.
That was more horror than you expect Evil Dead to be in some ways. Like, I don't know about you, I never found Evil Dead, any of them, to be that scary. It's just not what scares me personally.
Not scary, but intense.
Intense, yeah, tension. There's tension in it.
It's scary to me the way that a Hostel is to me.
Right. There's also this element of like, the main character is going to get out of it, but I always love it when a movie makes me feel like I genuinely am not sure how that's going to happen. in a given moment where I'm like, man, they're kind of fucked right now. You know, I enjoy that feeling. And yeah, this is a combination of like tension and just like, you know, grotesqueness. That's just a lot of fun ultimately. And like, yeah, it's not scary. It's just that this happens to be not something that like, you know, gore doesn't tend to scare me, and zombies and, you know, demons, unless done in the right way. You know, this is a movie that this shows everything. That's the whole point, you know? And that's what's fun about it. I want to talk about the direction because
Okay.
I think both Evil Deads, both remakes, did a good job with this, but I think this one did it more. Is that there's one more element to what makes an Evil Dead that I think is a requirement, and that is a certain amount of absurdity in a general absurdity and chaos in the storytelling and in the filmmaking. It's hard to put my finger on it, but obviously Sam Raimi directed those first movies in a very unique way, right?
Right. You want it to feel as chaotic as what is happening on screen.
Right. Ash sort of loses his mind, and as does this character at the end. She's kind of doing the Ash going nuts expressions. They don't do it as much. There's often in the other Evil Deads, there were often moments where they're alone and they're just they're going nuts.
Yeah.
They're like they're hearing sounds and like they're being tortured mentally. There's less of that, but in that chaos, there's just sometimes the filmmaking is particularly weird, you know. And of course, the cinematography itself is very unique in the original Evil Deads, and I thought this person or their cinematography or whoever did a very good job of making it feel unique to them. They're not copying Sam Raimi, but there's a chaoticness in the editing, in the sound design, in the camera work.
The camera moves,
that feels very Evil Dead without imitating Sam Raimi himself.
All the stuff through the peephole is one
the peephole is a great example
that comes to mind. Yeah, because it's simultaneously it's a bit Looney Tunes because they're running back and forth and you can't really see what's happening. It's really intense because it's creepy and your peripheral vision is cut off. You can see the imperfections that are on the peephole itself or on the lens of the camera.
Yeah, and you see a lot happens to the peephole. For people who haven't seen it, it's they're observing all this violence and shit.
Yeah,
that's a very good example because that also doesn't feel necessarily like a Sam Raimi thing. And that's what I mean is that the director doesn't feel like he's just trying to be Sam Raimi, but they're able to inject that chaoticness or that weirdness into the filmmaking in their own way. There were some Dutch angles, you know, but like, for example, the eye shot, they don't do the same shot, the same sequence of shots. They do it in their own way.
It was so different, in fact, that I did not immediately notice it was an homage.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so differently done. Yeah.
Yeah. There are little homages in the shots. I believe there's a sort of a POV shot of the eye a little bit, but it's not done in the same style. It's shit like that. It's hard to describe without like kind of rewatching it. But like, and then of course the sound design was, again, they were doing kind of that Evil Dead idea where you use all the senses, including sound, where there's these weird fucking sounds.
Yeah.
And you can't quite tell what they are. But again, the sounds felt unique to this film and to this filmmaker.
Right. You're talking about stuff like the Raimi cam, and then stuff like the weird stop motion shots, like Ash's eye clearing up in Evil Dead 2, and some of the disjointed animation and like the sounds when like Professor Nobi is breaking into the world, and it's like it's unconnected noises like horses and lightning bolts and shit, and it's like drifting through the channels so you can hear it going from left to right in your ears when you're watching it.
Right.
It's stuff like that is what we're talking about, where it's in the filmmaking itself, it's like strange and chaotic and frenetic, and it's sort of capitalizing or not capitalizing, but really going the extra mile to express the chaos of Evil Dead, of what's happening on screen.
A lot of horror movies hadn't done. And that was what, when I first saw Evil Dead,
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling like I've never seen something like this. I've never seen someone use every part of the movie in such a
Right, it's like
aggressive way.
Right, it's aggressive. That's the exact right word, because it's not just like, here, I want to upset people with what's happening on screen. It's like, no. I want to also upset people with the way I'm moving the camera and the way the sounds are hitting their ears.
Right.
And just
to portray like a vibe in the room.
Yeah.
To portray an evil. Like the camera is representing it not just as a POV shot, but as just a
its
general
influence
weirdness.
on the space, yeah.
I always think about the shot. I think it's in Evil Dead. They do it in both of them, and they do it better in Evil Dead 2. And I think I'm thinking of the Evil Dead version, or Evil Dead 2 version, where it's an aerial shot looking straight down, and Ash is walking, and as each of the not banisters, are they called banisters? Not columns. You know what I'm thinking of. The slats on the roof, boards keep going by. You hear it; they make a sound.
They make like a whoosh.
And that sound, and that sound is for us, the audience. It's not something Ash is hearing. It's shit like that. And I think this does it in its own way. Again, that doesn't feel like it's just trying to be Sam Raimi, and it definitely doesn't do it as aggressively. I'm always going to say this about this movie and the original remake is, it ain't Sam Raimi. It's not gonna be. It's not the original. It just can't be.
No.
There's a certain charm to the indie, the low budgetness of the first Evil Deads, and also the fact that no one had done that exactly like that before, and I hadn't seen that. So, that's never going to be here. But that's what I mean about this, where I'm like, I'm glad they didn't try. They just kind of did shots in their own way. Like, for example, when they're talking about the book, they kind of have a POV shot from the book. Little things like that that are like kind of a little disjointed, a little weird, a little unnerving, but interesting,
Yeah, I liked the
And
Necronomicon.
unique.
I thought that I didn't
Yeah,
and I
it
didn't
looked
think
good.
I didn't think I was gonna, because I had another moment of concern, sort of like you did, with some of like the more overt, like, kind of winks and nods to the audience, like the "come get some," like the direct references when they mention that when he puts on the record, which is the priest reading from the book, he mentions that there's 3 Necronomicons. So I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like this, because this one is
That's interesting. So the idea is that the one in the original is one Necronomicon, and the one in the remake is probably another, and then this one is a third.
if not if the one in the original is not meant to be the one from the original series. Like I think,
Oh, you're right.
I think
Yeah, it might be.
the remade series does not exist in the same universe as the original series. I think
Yeah,
that
that's
seems
fair.
to be the case.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, there's going to be a third Necronomicon. That's all right. It felt a little Marvel-y, like they were setting up sequels. But that aside, I did really like the redesigned Necronomicon.
For sure.
Like, it's not a face.
Yeah,
It's got these teeth that look really gnarly. And like the book itself, the drawings were fucked up and gnarly, like they always are. They look like Cannibal Corpse albums. But
Yeah.
like the sound design of the pages turning, like it's like this thick, almost sticky rustling.
Yeah, that was cool.
And Leah, as an Evil Dead fan, you go into the movie, you know why it sounds like that, but it hasn't sounded like that in previous versions.
Right.
And also the way they design the pages so that they look like you can tell it's human skin. It's
Right.
like really
You know what
gnarly.
it is? Yeah. You know what it is that Sam Raimi and Rob Tapper are producing these, and Bruce Campbell. And one of the things they know to do, and they've done it every time, is they don't just get any fucking director. They get someone who is paying a lot of attention to these things, to the camera work, to the sound. They're not just shitting out horror movies, right?
To the production
They're
design
paying-
too, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing we talked about that Mario movie, which was fine. But that Mario movie is a version to me of someone just saying, just give it to someone and just make a kids movie, right?
Yeah.
And you could easily just make a horror movie
Yeah.
out of Evil Dead.
Yes.
You get someone and they'll do the jump scares, they'll do the mirror shots, they'll just fucking do it by the book. And that's what I like about both of the remakes of Evil Dead is they don't really do it by the book. They get a director who does something unique, who kind of makes their mark while making the movie. And that's why this idea that they're going to make them every few years worries me a little bit, in combination with a lot of stuff we're talking about, where I realize like how many times we want to watch someone find a book and read from it.
Yeah.
In the first, you know, how many times we want to watch that opening idea? We don't need it every single time. So what do you do? If you if you make another Evil Dead after this, what do? You just have someone do it again?
I don't know.
It's like the Wishmaster movies, where it's like how many fucking times do you have to let the Wishmaster out? You know,
stop rubbing his lamp or his gem,
right? And
whatever.
when you look at what we did with the original Evil Deads, is they very much. I mean, Evil Dead 2 had to repeat some stuff, but they didn't want to. They just had to because they didn't have the rights. But Sam Raimi has always made them a saga, right? Army of Darkness is a very different film. Ash vs. the Evil Dead, very different series. And what I'm scared is that they're going to keep remaking the first Evil Dead over and over again. By making this an episodic thing, they're going to have to keep doing this again and again. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this, you know?
I don't know. I think you were onto something with your suggestion of being loose in a city, because we do see with that cabin prologue that goes into the epilogue, there's no book involved with those characters. That's
true. It's just sort of loose now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. Maybe they will continue.
I did have
that movie.
Two thoughts that came to mind as you were speaking. We were talking about reading from the book and the spooky ass records that the DJ Teen has to work on his turntable for us to listen to. Did you hear the Bruce Campbell cameo?
No.
Was
it he the?
I'm 98% certain. He's one of the priests you can hear shout in the background. It says, "No, destroy it. It's the Book of the Dead." You can't,
that's great.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that was Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, he was bound to be in it.
He had a vocal cameo in the last one too.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to point out that I just realized, like a great fool, Dave, a great braying fool, as we were recording this, is the hallway is the cellar.
The hallway is the cellar.
The hallway outside of their apartment is the cellar from the original Evil Dead, right? Because they lock.
Oh, you're right.
They lock her in it.
Lock her.
There's a chain keeping her in, and it's a kind of a similar
right,
shot, except she's singing lullabies on the other side of it. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that shot, by the way, when she tricks the little girl into opening the door.
Oh, it's so good.
They linger, listeners, if you haven't seen it yet. They linger on the little girl, like, as she's slowly turning the deadbolt, because she's still not sure. And it's this drawn out scene of Mother talking to her through the peephole, through the door. And she's just slowly turning the deadbolt. And the very instant that deadbolt clicks open, the door bursts open, and it's Mom going fucking apeshit, full on Deadite apeshit, trying to claw her way through the chained door, and it's so well done. I love
really
that it was
is.
just like the instant the door unlocked. So good,
Yeah.
such a good instinct to do that.
Really is.
Because like
It's a very fun movie.
You feel like most movies would like draw, like the door would slowly swing open and it would, draw it out for a jump scare. But the fact that it instantly happened is that's such an Evil Dead decision.
Because it's still a jump scare, but it's even better because it's not at the pacing you expect.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, it's a very good movie.
Mm-hmm.
The acting also, by the way, everybody's doing a great job.
Yeah,
as the Deadites, having a lot of fun.
Yeah, the main Deadite lady, the mom, she's great.
Oh,
and
yeah, she's fucking killing
That's
it.
a difficult ass role, I'm sure. She gets beat up in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All in all, it was a good movie. I have like, my concerns are from like a producing point of view, where I'm like, I don't know how this can keep going.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't know how this is sustainable.
Don't worry about it. We'll figure that out if we have to. Like, remember when the original
no one's going to ask me to figure it out.
I mean, we'll figure out how we feel about it is kind of what I meant. Because like...
of course. Maybe they'll make us another one and it'll be great.
Yeah.
And they'll find a new way to change it up. It's just, this brought up questions to me that I hope they're asking, which is like, what makes an Evil Dead movie an Evil Dead movie? Do you need a Book of the Dead? Do you need, an Ash type character? Do you need a chainsaw? These are all things that I'm now like asking myself, because it is an interesting question. How do you extend this without Ash? If you're gonna make it episodic, if you're not gonna continue have a story that unfolds, what do you do to make it fresh? And I'm very curious to see what they come up with.
Yeah, same. And it's, I
Because
mean,
that's the thing. I also have faith in them.
yeah,
Rob Tappert and Sam Raimi as producers, they obviously are asking these questions, you know?
and it may not happen too. That's because
That's true.
I felt like there was going to be a sequel to the Fede Alvarez remake, and there was all this excitement around it, but it never wound up doing anything.
That's the thing. I think they're out doing the right thing already. And the idea of them saying we want to have one every few years, that's all well and fine. But honestly, it seems like they're taking great care in these two that they made, where they find a filmmaker they want to use, they find a good idea that's fun, and they make the hell out of it.
That's it's an interesting distinction for Evil Dead as a franchise. Is that so far there's no bad Evil Dead.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah, and that is unique in horror franchises.
That's very unique, and like there's a freshness to. Here's the other thing that it's so funny because it's part of me not knowing what I want. This is why I liked the first 4 Alien movies, because even though those are very repetitive, Sigourney Weaver, there's more aliens, what are we going to do? They have a different director for each one who has a different vision, who brings a freshness to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's smart for them to keep having different directors do different Evil Deads.
Yeah.
I also think it's smart to have different characters, frankly.
Yeah.
I just am trying to think about like, well, how do you keep doing that? And it's tough. I think they got to find a way to drop the book. I think they got to find. So here's what it is. We talked about that prologue and epilogue and how it seemed weird. It might be the smartest fucking thing they ever did.
Right.
Because what they're promising basically is, what if the next movie is at the fucking A-frame house, starts there, and it continues on like a virus? And what if that movie ends with an entirely different cast, it moving to them? And they keep doing that? That'll be fucking great.
Yeah.
If every single thing you follow, you just follow the evil as it goes to a new group in a new situation, and you keep playing with that would be a fucking blast.
Yeah. No, I think
bring it on.
That seems to be what the goal of that scene was.
Yeah, it's like a Jason movie. Jason is the same. Everything around him is different.
Right. Yeah. It seems like what this movie was trying to do ultimately with that was to get rid of the book.
And it did it in a very cool way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm really fucking excited for what they come up with.
Yeah, man. I'm totally in. This was great.
Yeah.
This was great.
It was just a lot of fun.
I love that little Boogans at the end. That teen's mom Boogans with all the arms and legs. I
think the thing that did it, my favorite moment, is still the bed sheet. And the reason why is because I hadn't really quite seen that in Evil Dead, because one of the things they always do is the Deadite, and it's like, and it covered like that was like, oh, that's kind of neat. They like took that away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's running around still, and it's floating, and it's doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it just looks creepy as shit.
When it flies across the room, just dragging its toenail across the floor.
Yeah,
my
and it's
goodness.
all bloody and shit, and it's like, that was a blast.
This movie was buck wild.
Yeah, it was great.
I don't have anything else to say. I don't think.
No. I had more to say than I thought I did, to be honest, because this was just pure joy watching it.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do this podcast right after watching it, so you can hear us in real time think about it.
The best thing I can say is it still felt like Evil Dead, but not entirely. Like it felt like a new thing.
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah. And in all the ways that I said earlier, it's like, I wasn't sure about the apartment. I wasn't sure about the prologue. So all those things that I kind of wasn't sure about sort of still come together, because this is still identifiably an Evil Dead movie in its DNA.
I gotta say, so I do want them to go back to the city. That A-frame, that like that cabin, that new cabin. I don't want a new cabin. I think we're done with the cabin. And here, I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna sound stupid, but considering Army of Darkness, I do think there are so many places to go with this.
There are.
And I think the next sequel, not the one after the next sequel, let's go to space. Let's go to space. And not just go to space, but let's go to like not future space. I don't mean like Jason X. I mean, let's go to the International Space Station.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah, let's do the like gravity shit.
Yeah.
Let's do it where it's like astronauts in a shuttle, like modern today. Again, not future, because future, that just creates the same thing where it's just they're running around. I don't know. I just think there'd be a lot of fun for outer space.
Right.
Or like, let's just start throwing it in different settings.
Yeah, gravity with the Deadite.
Yeah, but let's really commit to it. Because that's my only note of this is like, I wish they had really done the city, like really gotten every part of it. This was a lot of fun, but I do think there's more city to be had too. But outer space, Wild West, Tom, Wild West, Evil Dead.
Sure.
The beauty of the Book of the Dead is it's been
old.
around for a while.
It's super old. It was in a bank vault in this one. What does that mean? Is there like 1940s gangsters Evil Dead?
I don't know. It's the same with like the Aliens or Predators, where it's like the biggest mistake they can make is like feeling like there's a limitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what made Prey so fun. Is it's like that realization of like there's no limitations here.
No.
There's no rules to where an Evil Dead can be set.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they get away from the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like a truck stop diner, like you can change it up, and I don't think you need isolation either. I think you can have fun.
It'd be cool if you did like a kind of like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like where it's in like a cul-de-sac or a neighborhood.
Oh yeah, ooh, fuck yeah, just a neighborhood would be
just
fun.
a neighborhood would be cool.
Suburban, a mall,
a mall, sure,
yeah, or again. Space.
Sure. No,
Evil Dead
I like
in space.
I wasn't going with you at first, but when you said modern, I was like today, like contemporary. I was like, okay, I'm there with you.
Right, because you could wear the space suits. They'll actually protect you from deadites a little. A little bit. No, but a little enough. Like if someone turned into a deadite in a spacesuit, that'd be fun because they can't really like bite and scratch. Like it would be like they could do something fucked up. They could, and of course, sucking someone off into space.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta suck them off.
You gotta do the space suck off.
Yeah. There's just so many fun things you could do, and then you still have that weird isolation. You have the idea of it's trying to like tear through the walls. You could like trap them in some places.
Mm-hmm.
There's fun shit you could do. There's weird equipment you can hit them with. I like the idea of just like blood covered space station eventually.
Yeah, I mean, who does that? I dream about that at least twice a week. Like, who doesn't love that image? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The future is bright. Listen, I have nothing else to say.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This is a podcast.
It sure is, Dave.
This has been a podcast. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. Mm-hmm. You go on there for just $5 a month. You get us access to a bunch of other podcasts exclusive on there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We do Star Trek The Next Futurama and Spiel Boys with the Small Beans. For a little more, you can watch movies every Friday night. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't watch this. This would be a fun watch.
Oh, hell yeah. We got to watch this in the other remake, too, at some point.
Yeah, the other remake has one scene.
That's true. I knew there was a reason we hadn't watched yet. Folks, we also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you'll find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out. Check
it out.
Your undead peepers onto that. Bite your peeper out of its peeper hole and spit it across the room at another person who then swallows your peeper and spits it back up onto the website where you'll find our merchandise.
That's correct. That's exactly how you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way to do it. God, yeah, they murdered a DJ, and that's really what's important.
That's truly what matters, is that they murdered a DJ.